Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness. I want to just go into a little car flow. I've done a few videos and, you know, first of all, how about that full moon? A little bit of a doozy. I say that every full moon, though, it seems like lately. I think I want to do a little light language. I haven't done a lot of light language videos lately. And I'm going to do a little light language, which is basically a tone, a frequency, and a pattern of language that holds energy, right? Just like any type of word does. So it's meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis. Although it can be, I'll do some interpretation of what the messages, the packets of words are representing. And I'll go in a little flow with the guides. I said I was going to do that in one of my other videos, and I never did. So I'm going to follow through with that today. Okay. And I'm going to share messages too. So if light language isn't your thing, just hang in there, give it a shot, and I'll share some more things as we progress. All right, some toning. I don't know if the headphones are going to cancel out the toning. Niish ik uaha inik ai di ish ik ai hene. Kuaha ish imakai nini ik et ish ik haine he wauahap ini. No ku aish im ak uahana et ish ukuyana e ai ik ish ua neki ai mak ai hene. Nik aish nukunehe. Di ak ush ahani ewa et inikia. Te ash ak anehewa e ukuahane. And so this particular language or subset of language or frequency pattern expressed in words carries with it energy, just as any language carries with it energy. It carries forward energy from one space into another, perhaps the space of mind, if you will, or the past, and yet it brings it into the forefront in the brain and brings us into a space where, and frontal lobe, in a space where we are able to access more information. It is shared in such a way that it is meant to be felt as the energy is distributed through patterns of orientation with the communication or the order of words and patterns that then line up to create a frequency, a geometry, if you will, a geometric code, just as any language does. And one of the messages that we being the collective of we, of energy, that you and me, that all of us are, I'm hearing like it's a medium, right? So it's part of what we're all part of, essentially. We are big on communication, for we are moving into a new stage, if you will, of reality in which we are going to be introduced to different forms of communication, potentially from our brothers and sisters from other locations within the earth, around the earth, and outer planetary alignments, one might say. And it also because of the future of AI and the communication channels in which the English language has been funneled through has lost some of its spark, if you will, some of its sparkle. And we, part of this collective energy or consciousness, wishes to bring this through in this particular experience, in this particular version of reality, in this particular lifetime. And the channeling, the channeler, are all invited to play with this frequency and energy. I'm being called to share a little bit about that. I'm just going to see what I'm meant to share. So, okay, so I'm seeing. So when the patterns line up within the mind or within the body and they come through in a body, if you will, a pattern, a body, or a collective of meaningful expressions, they're then expressed through communication. This communication does not have to be spoken form. It can be written, drawn, it can be hummed, it can be toned, it can be played in musical quality, it can be spoken in any language, really. And it can also be seen, felt, and through all of that, of course, heard. And so we are sharing that when we communicate with one another, we are not merely communicating through word format. We are all telepathic in many ways, and we are picking up on the codes that are held within this matrix or uh, body of reality. So I'm being shown that we're a body. So I'm sharing through Carrie as my speech patterns, but I'm tuning into a body of a collective of beings who are, let's say, a future version of me. I'm also tuning into the body that is the medium, that is the aether or the ether. I know they're different, but aether, I'm going to use them exchangeably. Through that medium, I am sharing communication. And that is in itself a body that is held within, let's say, the frame or the body of the earth. Because even though we're not under the earth, we're still held within the air that the earth is holding within her body, if that makes sense. And the body is of the earth is air, water, right? Fire. All these things are parts of the body of the collective of the frequency that is Gaia or Earth or Eartha or whatever we want to label it as. And this is important, for as we traverse through this new map and this new reality, many of us are opening to multidimensionality. We're opening to multiple and new thought forms and ways to increase our abilities, increase our communication attributes. And this is all a play on words. We are creating more by us opening this door and channel, if you will, of communication. And so all of us are capable of oh boy, I'm hearing teleportation, telepathy, clairvoyance, clear thought, claircognizance. So I'm just seeing that we all have these, but not all of us are going to utilize these abilities all at the same time or this way of communication. Some of us will be the interpreters. Some of us will be the mediums, if you will, that are here to assist in the collective rising consciousness and ways of communication with different realms. When there are those who have arrived or will arrive on our planetary discussion or who come here to discuss certain topics with us, there will be those of us, and there already are those of us, who are perfectly capable of receiving those messages and then clearly or clairaudiently or however we wish to describe it, are sharing those messages with the collective. Why is it that not everyone chooses to communicate in this way? Why is it that not everyone will necessarily focus on communication in this way? And it is just like those who play sports. Not everyone is destined or wishes to have the experience of playing football and or basketball, or and they're compartmentalizing sports. Some people do not wish to communicate through sports language in any way, shape, or form. There are those who only are here to talk about the sport, and that is their own form of communication. They are doing it through words and interpretation of the plays. Some are here to write the playbook and to draw the map of how the game will line up. This is all a play on words. So each of us has our own individual resources. And they're going back to the football. Like, I am not a linebacker. So that isn't my resource. That isn't something that and it goes to show that we're all part of the game, if we wish to call it that. And we all came here to participate in the game in a myriad of ways. So we are here to show that our communication and way of communication is being up leveled, if you will. And I'm going back into a little light language. maybe. When we drop in to light language, we are dropping into a place that is within the heart. It is a frequency or a bubble, if you will. And if you've ever seen, I'm being shown dolphins or sonar, the energy that is shared through this particular way of communication holds a frequency and a pattern that disturbs, if you will, just as any form of communication does, the waves and the patterns. So I'm being shown like when you say like or love, it's a wave that goes out, it ripples through the medium of aether, and it is sound. And that sound is created because of the disturbance in the medium. And this is just what I'm hearing or feeling, the sound is created through the disturbance in the medium that is the aether, that is the air. And that combination creates the effect of sound. And this is just one perspective of looking at it from what I'm being shown. And there have been many, 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 many sounds and things that have gone into the field that are still distorting the field. Everything is a distortion of the field, if you will, or beyond the one original sound. And so we are all hearing different patterns. We are all picking up on different frequencies. And when we become habitually tuned into a particular pattern or frequency, new patterns and frequencies aren't always recognized, number one. In addition to that, they aren't always welcomed because they feel unusual. They feel different than what we are used to operating within. And so for some people, that fear or discomfort communicating in this way will keep them on a particular trajectory, locked into a particular program, and away from some of the new ways of communication. That does not mean, however, they will not still be picking up on telecommunication or programming sent through the waves of television and telephone and internet. And so we can still communicate through those mediums, if you will, with light language and multidimensional ways of receiving and sharing information. So that's more of the wordplay that I do and utilizing just different parts of our template to understand the many facets of language and versions of reality. Anyways, I'm going to go off on a tangent there. And those individuals will receive and see potentially distorted programs, although this particular program is spoken from the heart. And so it should be felt in that place, if you will. Yet there are people who are in a place of fear. And because of that fear programming, are unable to necessarily hear the new sounds that are coming in. They are not necessarily able to calibrate their own frequency in such a way that they can play in the new frequencies. And so they will choose to play in the old frequencies, for that is their comfort zone. Yet there are many others who are stepping outside of their comfort zone. And I'm being shown you can still be in a place of fear while you're in your comfort zone. That keeps you in your comfort zone by not, oh, that's scary, I can't do that. This is very comfortable for me. That's not always a bad thing, by the way. Sometimes that fear is actually like a warning, like, hey, this isn't my cup of tea. I don't feel. There's a difference between not feeling good about something, like intuitively picking up on it, and being afraid of something because of the programming that tells us we should be afraid of it, if that makes sense. And what they're showing me is that this changes our interpretation of it. Oh, okay, I'm seeing a lot of the stuff. So they're also referencing right now to a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the skies. I don't know about you guys, but have you guys seen all those videos? And it's hard to tell, well, which one is AI and which one is real, and what if that's just a drone, and what if this is what it's all about? It's a mix of everything. So the message that I've been getting is, here we are. Now is the time for us to use our discernment and to pick up on our intuitive abilities. There are going to be those people who choose to just stay in their patterns, and so they're going to see everything as fearful. And then there's those who are getting out of their comfort zone, but they're still in a place of fear. And I've been there, because when you first start opening to your clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairs, or you have a Kundalini awakening and you haven't processed your fear that you had because of programming, whether it's religion, whether it's family stuff, whether it's trauma from childhood, weird experience, whatever it might be, television shows that we've watched. When we start to see things that we're not used to seeing and hearing, it can be scary. It can feel very nerve-wracking. And so what I'm being shown is that not only are we now feeling that kind of churning up inside of us as a collective, but many of us are starting to see it. So it's like it's a double conundrum a little bit, because this is why the guides are like, just don't be afraid. um, Being afraid of something isn't necessarily going to make it better or make it go away. Avoiding it isn't going to make it go away. Ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. Although, from one perspective, what we focus on does accelerate and bring up that into our field. So the irony is, a lot of people don't want to focus. They're afraid of certain things, yet that's all they're focusing on. You know what I mean? Okay, so we are introducing these ideas and concepts, as we have been for many, 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 many years. The ways in which this channel, Carrie, is communicating have changed, based on her own rhythms. It's funny that I'm talking like in this a third person. But it's true, because it's when I'm doing this work, it feels like the information is coming from my guides or a future version of me, which is outside of me, but it's not. It's actually part of who I am. So, but it's easier sometimes to pretend or to play with that outside of, because sometimes we get our own inner guidance and we don't necessarily believe it. So part of my them and us is a habit. It's a pattern. It's program, just like everybody else. Part of what Carrie has learned is that the way in this communication style requires certain proactive ways of moving through this energy. And this comes in the form of breathing, yoga, diet, connecting with the planet, going into the heart. And this has taken years for me to get comfortable with. In the beginning, there were a lot more movements, or a lot more light language was necessary in order to shift the pattern and break the patterns and the programs, to get out of her own way, to get out of my own way, to get out of the way of it, this energy that moves through all things, because it is a purity of consciousness when we can utilize this information in a pure form and not interlace it with fear forms or programmed patterns, and therefore change the interpretation accordingly. And we share this because there are many beautiful channelers and psychics and telepathic individuals, so on and so forth, that are already utilizing these gifts. And they are choosing to focus on particular matters or affairs or topics or subject matter that is curiosity, or that many of us are curious about. And while this can be fun, playful, and useful, it isn't necessarily the most useful benefit of one's time. Yet that is irrelevant, because that is their choice. So we are being invited to remind everyone that it is your choice on how you choose to communicate in this new energy. But we would invite you, and they used the word advise earlier, but it's like play with that a little bit, to know. We would invite you to heed your own advisory board, your own advice, and not necessarily tune into things because you are bored. Recognize that the boredom is something coming from within. And they're inviting me to see how we played with the words. It's like using all the words at our disposal. To recognize that this boredom is partly because we are not fully looking in the direction of where it is that we are most blissful, joyful. And sometimes that requires us looking at what we are afraid of. And ask ourselves, why am I listening to this? What is it that interests me? Perhaps it's just the story of tuning into another individual. I'm being shown like channeling, like, we're going to get nosy and check in on, and by the way, I've been guilty of this myself. Tuning in, remote viewing this or remote viewing that. But what they're showing me is that's fine. But is that going to help with the growth of whoever's listening or whoever is sharing the information? It's like working a muscle. So it will help with the growth of who's sharing the information because they're practicing. But whoever's listening, it's like, how is that benefiting you? And so it's okay to be playful, but they're sharing with us, like, tuning in, be playful, and ask yourself, is this helping my growth, my own personal growth? And part of that is that boredom. Um, and they're saying use curiosity, but curiosity, it's like there's a limit to it, meaning um, there's a fine line, is basically what they're saying. And so in this particular case, we've gotten off track a little bit. But just to get back on track, we invite everybody to go within your hearts and to feel what track you're being pulled down. And that's a key play on words. Are you being pulled down into a certain track that doesn't feel good? Are you being pulled up into another realm that maybe isn't something you feel called to really grow from? How do you feel? And this is a play on words as well. Okay, so I'm being called to play with that. How? How is it that you are feeling what you're feeling right now? So the first question is, how do I feel? Do I feel sad? Do I feel happy? Does this make me feel confused? Does this make me ask more questions? Are those questions beneficial for myself and greater growth of the collective? Does it make me feel more expansive, or do I feel more fearful? Do I feel angry? If I do feel fearful, why am I afraid? If I am angry, it's okay. Why am I angry? Maybe this is something I need to integrate. And these are all questions we're being invited to ask ourselves. But deeper than that, or on another level of this particular play on words, how is it that I'm feeling this way? How are these feelings moving through my body? Where are they coming from? Is this an emotion that I'm attached to because of a story that I have been attached to? Is this an emotion I'm feeling because I am in the process of healing a disease? Is this more emotional for me because of the energies of the moon or the sun? It's important to start opening and expanding to how big our feelings really are and see beyond this particular one reason that we're feeling something. What does this remind us of? What memories are coming up for us? How is it that I am part of this entire reality? I'm seeing that question, right? The caterpillar, who am I? Or the Zoolander, merman, who am I? And many of us are asking these questions. How is it that I'm hearing this sound that I've never heard before? How is it that I'm feeling as I walk into a room what others might be feeling? And recognizing that is part of this extrasensory awareness. How is it that I'm speaking light language? And it's not that we have to have the answer, it's the asking that brings more awareness to us. For the question is always expanding into another question, and the answers are always expanding into more answers. For even though we had the answer to one of the questions and it was correct, now there's more. And maybe that answer no longer fits into the expansiveness of the bigger answer that we are now open or are opening to receiving. Maybe before, the things we questioned would get an answer and a closed door, a closed book, and so it is. Now we are asking the questions, and the book is wide open, and we are finding more chapters or discovering more parts of the page that we never saw before, yet they have been here the whole time. And that is the message. So, in love and light, guys, I'm just going to end on that note. Yeah, have fun co-creating, recognizing that communication can come through just a look on your face. It can come through looking into somebody else's eyes. It can come through touch. It can come through just expanding the heart space out into the room and recognizing what that feels like. This is all forms of communication. And so we're being invited to do is up level that that communication, that expansiveness. It doesn't have to be through light language. It doesn't have to be through channeling. It doesn't have to be through um, remote viewing. These are all things that are part of their fun. And if they can be useful and helpful, absolutely. But sometimes it's about just telling someone that you love them, that you haven't told in a while, so on and so forth. All right. In love and light, guys. Namaste.